how can we learn how to be a better communicator from what Hitler did? He is an evil person, but he had phenomenal persuasion skills. Think about how much more successful a human being would be if they could study the good of what someone is doing and remove the charge from like the character of the person. Jesus was probably the best closer of all times.
Your first video is not going to get views.
Love that.
I
right?
love that. It's like the Ed Sheeran videos, sharing his first songs he wrote, and they're just atrocious.
The 3 steps to increase your conviction said by Mary Forrest are... Hi, and welcome to the Jason Forrest Show. Today I'm with my wife, Mary Forrest, and we're talking about a lot of things. And one of the main things we're talking about, which is totally crazy, is how can we learn how to be a better salesperson from people like Bernie Madoff and from Jesus. This is going to be a big show, and so let's get going. Hey, Mary, what's this thing about this quiet cutting that's going on?
So I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal this week about this shift because quiet quitting, that where employees would just like do the bare minimum or do nothing at all to make sure they didn't lose. And so what the article was saying is that now it's shifted because the labor market has shifted. And so with quiet cutting, it's the reverse. It's where bosses are putting different things in place that allow, that will force people to cut. Hold on, I have my phone. Let me read you this tagline right here, exactly what it says. Balance of power shifts back towards bosses. With labor market less tight, workers face return to office mandates, smaller bonuses, and no more pet sick days. So it's talking about, I guess, recently, JP Morgan Chase, Amazon, and Dell Technologies have all gotten rid of all of those mandates. So everybody is required to come back to the office 5 days a week. And so what the article is saying is that on the quiet cutting is that senior management knows that people are going to revolt and not want to do that. They're used to being at home. And so what's going to happen is many people will opt out of coming back to work. And that's the purpose is a weed out system.
Well, it's exactly the same thing that Elon and Vivek are doing with their Department of Government Efficiency, their DOGE, I think it's what it's called, right? Is that they said that right now, because there's so many government workers that are allowed to work from home 5 days a week, that instead of having to fire people, one of the first things they're doing is they're just going to make everyone have to be in the office or have to come back to work 5 days a week versus working from home. And they said that alone is going to cause people just to opt out.
It's interesting, and I feel, I get it. I mean, not the quiet cutting part. I'm like a very direct message, but on whether people should be in the office or not, and. In transparency, I don't work in an office 5 days a week. So I get it from that side too. But what's interesting what I think about with this, I'll be interested where your mind goes with it. When you look at lab profiles, which is something I believe it was Bandler created for the neuro-linguistic programming, you also look at, there's different things within different studies within NLP. There are people that exist that work better from being working alone. That percentage is pretty small, but there are people that are way more efficient to go home, be around no one, and work really well. There are people that absolutely cannot work that way. They need people around them all the time. These are your group project people. They're going to flourish. If you put them by themselves, they're going to go crazy. They're not going to do anything. And then we also have most people, I believe it's like 75 to 80% of people. It's what, we like to call like your Starbucks type people, not because they're working at Starbucks, but they need people around them to be efficient, but they don't want to work with the people. So I don't want to do a group project, but my best working environment is to be at a table, like at a Starbucks, like where a lot of solo entrepreneurs and people will go work. They'll go work in a Starbucks in order to be around people to have that energy so they're not alone, but they're not wanting to do a group project with people. So it's interesting statistically that way. I see that it is more productive for the majority of people to have them together, but I do understand there is a small fraction of people that will be better on their own. But where does your mind go?
Well, my entire company started with me writing books at Starbucks because of that exact reason. I needed the commotion, like the line from Boiler Room, for example, is, commotion creates emotion, and we need emotion for people to buy things. And so, so they would say, move around, go run around, do something, create energy. And if you go to a Tony Robbins conference, I mean, that's one of the big things that you're constantly doing, right? Is every like 30 minutes you jump up and down and you dance, and they got dancers on stage because, again, that commotion creates emotion. So, but as far as where my mind goes, so I think there's some value obviously in that. But I think the problem is probably something underneath the surface. So, I mean, the reason why we have to do this quiet cutting type concept is probably because it's just lack of clear expectations and lack of vision from the leadership perspective as far as what we're really trying to accomplish and what we need from people. That it sounds like they probably just interviewed wrong. They probably just hired the wrong people if they're having to come back and start to do these quiet cutting measures. At the same time, I'm about to kind of play a little Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde on my own self, is that I believe that people just need to constantly raise their standards. I mean, the things that you and I have said over and over again is you don't really have to ever fire anyone unless they're doing something unethical or immoral. You just need to keep raising the standards equal to your desired outcome. And the people who want to be a part of a winning team and want to adopt the higher standards, then they'll stay on board and they'll adapt to those higher standards. And the ones that won't, they'll go work for the competition that you're about to take out.
That's great. But, and I agree with you. I mean, I think, do you think though that when I'm looking at the differences in employees and in the hiring, so I like you said, they probably hired wrong. I'm curious about how many people out there are telling people the way we are. And I think we learned this the hard way, but one of the things I'm doing when I'm interviewing somebody, interviewing personally to work at FPG, not interviewing for another company, is things are going to change all the time. And as soon as you get comfortable and you think I've got this, it's going to change because we're a high growth company. And so what works at a blank revenue doesn't work at the next level of revenue. It doesn't work, what works with this number of employees doesn't work with the next. So you have to constantly be changing. So I'm placing that expectation at the beginning, but I'm wondering, because I have seen a lot of videos of people saying, I'm not going to do certain things. It's not in my job description. That's not part of my job. That's not what I'm getting paid for, which absolutely would not. I mean, our job descriptions are changing all the time. And I think as a culture and a society, that's going to be even more as technology is coming in and there's more AI coming in. You're going to be asked to do different things than your original job description. And so that flexibility is going to be key. But again, I always go back to leaders is that, maybe hiring for flexibility, setting expectations of flexibility and change, setting expectations that there are going to be things outside of your job description. Again, if you're so, these are my task lists and this is my job description, that's a very, very low level employee. And you'll never get above that if that's the way that you think. I mean, that's a very task, do this level of employee. But I think sometimes as people are moving out of that or they want to move out of that, we need to set the expectations as leaders that this is not forever. This is set in stone for this month or this quarter, but this is not set in stone for forever.
Yeah, I love that. So again, we're really talking about what I believe is just the 3 steps for great leadership and great communication, and that's clear expectations, which is step 1. Step 2 is like very, very fast accountability, and then step 3 is praise them when they do it right. And I think a lot of times the mistake that people make is that they do a lot of praise. They never give expectations. So people really aren't clear, again, what are they being praised for? Or it's generic praise and not specific praise. Or they don't have expectations and they go right to step 2, which is just accountability on all the things that they're doing wrong. And so it really has to be done in that specific order, or it's expectations and then praise. And so, which is not, again, the right flow either, because I think that creates weakness. That it's here's all the things that you're doing right, but we're not as quick to talk about the things that they need to they need to improve on, the things they need to be better on. And so that second step on accountability, it needs to be quick. Like you can't, when it comes to accountability, it needs to be like constant little mini course corrections. It doesn't need to be, the quarterly performance evaluation where people are, now finding out for the first time the 5 things they need to improve on. It's really too late. It's like what Cobra Kai says, right? Strike first, strike hard, no mercy serve. And you've got to be very quick when someone is doing something that's not up to the expectations. You must let them know. Or Brene Brown would say, clearest, what clearest kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
The faster you can say things, the clearer, because otherwise, what's the opposite? The opposite is you're talking behind people's back. And that's not fair to any individual. You got to speak the truth. And I think a human being deserves to know if they're meeting the expectations or they're not meeting the expectations. They need to know, because if you're going to talk about them, then you should talk to them.
Yes, we talk, and that's one of our standards. One of the standards that we say is that we talk to people, not about people, within the company. So I 100% agree with that. Now, do you think that this pet sick day, is that hyperbole? Like, are we giving specific, like you get your own personal sick days and your pet sick days? Or are they just saying like, hey, we were more flexible with your PTO of if it's last minute and your pet is sick, we're allowing you to take off? Because the article does not specify, and I had never heard of this before. So I don't know if this is like we're throwing out something that's very extra. Do you know if this was a real thing?
I don't know if it's a real thing, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, it's the same people who are creating that are the same people that, say that people are allowed to be furries and have their own bathrooms. I mean, so, it is what it is, right? So
I don't know if it's that far, but yes, I mean, there have been some very weird things outside of the norm in the last few years that have come up.
Yeah.
But.
So I think again, I think the key to this whole thing is, again, I'm not against quiet cutting, but I am against quiet cutting, right? So I'm not against it in the sense of the underlying concept behind it is that we're going to consistently raise the standards in order to achieve the desired outcome. So I'm not against that part, but where I think it could be up leveled is if they do the first part, which is we're going to be really clear on the expectations of what we want from the beginning and why we want those expectations and the kind of culture and the vision that we're trying to create. So like, for example, at FPG, I mean, we're constantly talking about this, this idea that we want to give our clients the unfair advantage. We want to give them the ultimate sales experience. Customers deserve the ultimate sales experience. We want to be measured not by the results that we're achieving, but by how many customers say you're the greatest salesperson I've ever met in my entire life. And so, but by setting that vision constantly for our sales teams, it's an easy thing, because then we could get to go back to the salesperson and say, so, what did they say? What do you mean, what did they say? Well, did they say you're the best salesperson I've ever met? No, they didn't say that. Okay. Well, what are 5 things you can do to get them to say that in the future? Right. So I think we have to be really clear on creating those visions and the expectations for our team. And then we can add the accountability. So that would be kind of my stance on this whole thing.
Well, I like the expectation, but I'm also wondering about intention, because as we're talking this through, I'm thinking about, all the leadership classes that I'm teaching. And when we're talking about performance improvement plans, probation, a PIP, whatever we're calling it, and somebody says, I'm about to put somebody on a PIP, my very next question to them, 100% of the time, I will say, are you putting them on a PIP because you want to fire them and HR is making you do this? Or do you want them to improve their performance? Do you believe that they can, and we're going to put in the work to help them get there? And again, I'll tell them there's no judgment. I mean, I just need to know what our intention is to give you the right, most logical play here on what.
So are you trying to quiet cut them, or are you trying to really improve them?
Which is what this is, like a mass quiet cutting. But for a lot of them, they're like, no. I want them to win. I mean, that's 95% of the time I will hear, no. I want them to win. I would love for that to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but that's what I want. Great. So if this is my intention is to up-level our whole team, and this is the way that we're going to get to the next step, but I'm okay if they opt out, that's different than I got to get rid of 30% of my team. This is the easiest way on me to do it that has the least amount of conflict, also the least amount of cojones at that point, but I'll just do it this way, whether it's the lazy way or it truly is giving people the pathway to rise up or to choose their way out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think in a lot of cases that's usually the That's usually kind of a cowardly way to do things. But I love that question that you asked. I think that's a phenomenal question, and that's, do you actually want this person to win? Do you want this person to succeed? And I think that's a great question, because what you're doing from a coaching perspective is you're also reframing the entire concept, because right now, if that leader is so locked onto, I have to write this person up for the purpose of, I have to write this person up because the person's not succeeding. I need to write them up so that I can documentate and not get in trouble or HR violations, and of course, eventually their way out. Well, that's all their brain's going to lock onto. And so our brains are very teleological, they're very goal seeking. And so we're just going to do everything in our power to kind of like focus on that. And we believe that's the end, right? So we're going to have confirmation bias, and we're going to pay attention to, here's all the things this person's not doing, and then we're going to look for evidence over the next 30 days to make our confirmation bias, work. But with that one fell swoop, as Nate Bargatze says, as that one fell swoop, you were able to reframe it and completely give them a different perspective of, well, do you really want to fire this person, or do you want this person to succeed? Like, what's your outcome? And they're like, no, I want this person to succeed. Okay, well, now you're right. That changes the entire trajectory of the conversation, and obviously what you're going to pay attention to over the next 30 days to get this person to turn around. I mean, it's, instead of like the iceberg is coming, let's just kind of bear it out for the next 30 days. Instead, we see the iceberg 30 days from now, so let's see if we can get around it.
Exactly. Again, that's the kindest thing. And let's spend a lot of time making sure that we are putting a plan in place for the person to win. And if you go, no, I mean, they did something so egregious, or it's out of my hands, I have to let them go. Well, then I want a plan that's as fast and painless for the person as possible. Let's not delve into every problem that they have and tell them all their mistakes. I mean, now we're just being cruel. If you're letting them go, that's just mean-spirited at that point. Let's make this as easy and as kind as possible for everybody involved.
And this is one of the things that you teach in our Leadership Sales Mastery course, our Leadership Sales Coaching course, which is currently ranked number 1 in the world. We're very proud of that accomplishment. That's one of the things that we're teaching, correct?
Yes. How do we do a performance improvement plan that truly improves performance?
That's great. Okay. Well, speaking of performance improvement plan, one of my favorite kind of mentors right now is Alex Hormozi, and I found this video where he talks about one of the key, most important characteristics of a winning salesperson, and so I want to show you this video, and then let's talk about it.
Great.
So I like to train competence in tone, emphasis, pacing. I like someone to understand all of those things so they know what it looks like when it's right. But there's nothing that replaces a salesperson who's actually convicted. Because either you have a team of sociopaths who don't care at all but know how to say everything the exact right way, or you just have a team of people who really believe in the product, and by believing in the product, they say things the right way.
All right. So the word he's talking about is conviction. So it's interesting, because what I hear about that, and I've been using this word a lot, force multiplier. I think it was from the Taylor Sheridan show.
Lioness.
Yeah,
she was the force multiplier.
Yeah, she was the force multiplier.
Yeah, I think you paused the show at that moment and said, "This is the best line."
It's a great line. Yeah. So what is a force multiplier? Basically, think about like so many things are the force, and you have this force multiplier, which kind of creates an exponential variable on it. So I think a leader is a force multiplier to the sales team as the force. I think AI is a force multiplier for the individual human. And I think conviction would be then the force multiplier for a salesperson. Because if you think about it, a salesperson can have all of this knowledge. They can have the product knowledge, the brand knowledge, the finance knowledge. They can have the selling skills. They can know the certain scripts they need to have. But if their conviction is a 1 and everything else is a 10, well, it's like 10 times 1 is 10, right? But if their conviction is a 10 and everything else is a 10, it's 10 times 10 equals,
oh, come on,
100, right? So that, to me, conviction is just this force multiplier. So assuming Alex is correct, I think he's correct. What are some things right now that you would teach a sales team in order to improve their conviction about what they're saying, what they're selling, their product, their brand, et cetera?
Oh, number 1. I mean, this is I love this question.
I like how passionate you are on this number
1.
No.
Well, I mean, this actually came up on a call this week, so it's really funny. This is fresh in my brain, and I did not know you were going to ask and talk about this, but this is really interesting because to me, the number 1 is, do you believe that you are underpriced? I mean, that's the question to ask. Not, do I believe my price is fair? But how many salespeople think they're overpriced? And when you think you're overpriced, you go in with a certain energy, right? When you believe that you're fair priced, you go in with a certain energy. But how many people believe that you are so good, your company is so good at what you do, your offerings are so great that it is the steal of a lifetime, that you are underpriced. People should pay double for what you have. When you believe that, boom, conviction's there.
Okay, so hold on. So it's almost like you're embarrassed that you're charging so little.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember times people, one is if somebody ever says to me like, whoa, you guys are really expensive. My answer is just, yes, we are. Like, yes. I mean, I'm not going to argue because you're right. It is expensive. I'm not going to, apologize for that. But if they do that, it's one thing to say expensive. It's another to say, I think if they say, I think it's overpriced, at that point, the trigger for me is, whoa, I did a horrible job of explaining this to you. Not apologizing for the price and changing the price. Let me see what I can do. It's, I did a really bad job right here. If it looks overpriced to you, I did a horrible job. Let me try again. And so from that perspective, going to incentives and discounts and things, it's not even a thing because you would feel out of your integrity to do that because it's already such a good deal. So just looking at that, and sometimes when you're new to a company or you have a new product, sometimes you've been with the company, but a new product line or a new service is coming in, you don't know. And so really having the conversations and asking the questions to your boss, the owner of the company, about the pricing model, about what would this be like if it was all separate and somebody did it themselves? What's the industry look like? What's the market? And you're looking at all of that until you're convinced that you are underpriced. Now, again, as long as all of that's true. I mean, everything that I say is with the presupposition that you're selling something that's good and moral, helpful to humanity, and is a good company. I mean, if you figure out that you work for a shyster company, well, that's a different story, different conversation. So this is all in. I'm working for a good, solid, ethical company.
Okay, so let's come up with three. So the first thing a person needs to do to increase their conviction is, number one, ask them that first question in the sales, like, what is that? Do you believe that you are underpriced, right? And do you feel almost embarrassed of how little you are charging? And the way to go fix that is to go do the work, right? Go ask your owner, go ask your sales manager, go figure out why we charge what we charge. What would be the second thing that a person needs to increase their conviction?
So the second would be is, if you were the target market, would you buy it? So it doesn't mean would you buy it today, because you might not be the market for it. And that's okay. You can sell something that you wouldn't personally buy because it's not right for you. I mean, I could go sell things for, babies. We have teenagers. I'm not going to buy any baby things. It's not, but if I was selling things for babies, then I would want to say, oh, if I was the market, if I did have a baby at home, I would want to purchase this. So if you were the market, and I think that's the change some people have to make, is because sometimes they think, well, I personally wouldn't buy this. Well, no joke. The market's 50-year-olds and you're 25. So of course you're not going to buy it, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't if you were of that age or of the market.
Got it. So the second thing would be really to associate themselves with the target market. And right now they might feel like disassociated with the target market, right? They don't feel that in their current life stage, they wouldn't buy it, or they don't need it at this current moment. But if they were their target market, if they were their ideal buyer, then again, would they buy it? And then really to speak, sounds like in this, the technique there would be to speak from that perspective, right? So instead of, so it's, so the type of person the type of person who has a problem like the following, or is looking to solve the problem, which is the following, or the type of person who wants to move towards the following, this service, this product has been invented for. This has been created with that business in mind, that person in mind. So they've got to be able to say those things and be able to believe that. Okay, good. And then let's do one more. What's the third way that person could increase their conviction?
So I would go shop your competition. Because
hoping you were going to say that.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, I was.
Maybe you sent that to me because after you said two, I thought I had one, and I'm not sure what I'm going to say next. But then that came up. So thank you for sending that to my brain. But I do. I mean, I believe that 100%. I have not found, and even with my clients, especially if they're nervous or scared of somebody in the market, a piece of competition, go find them right now. Like, go talk to them, go see them, go see the product, go see the service, go see the salespeople, because in doing that, now you really know what's in the market, and it'll only, well, I guess it doesn't. Most of the time when I'm working with somebody, it increases their conviction in what they're selling. Because even if they were scared before, they've built something else up in their head to be so big and so scary and so wonderful. And you get there and you're like, oh, I mean, this is normal, right? This is fine. And all these things that we're not doing. And so if you go look at the competition, and it's okay. I think one of the strengths of a top salesperson is recognizing that there are people in the market that the competition is better for. That exists. There are people like that. Not everyone should work with us. We are not perfect for everyone. There needs to be competitors that have a different niche that are better for other people. And so knowing that doesn't, even when you see what's great in competition, it doesn't weaken your own message. It strengthens your niche of who you are right for, so that when somebody comes in, you can use language like, the people who choose us value blank, while the people who choose the competition value blank. Let's figure out which one is a stronger value for you, or let's figure out which one is a better place or a better provider for you, that way. So you have to know your competition. Otherwise, we fill in stories and we make it scarier than it is.
Love it. All right. So the 3 steps to increase your conviction said by Mary Forrest are, number 1 is you have to first believe and convince yourself that you are not charging enough for your current product or service. And the way that you go fix that is go talk to your boss, talk to your owner, and again, be convinced. You got to get convinced. Otherwise you're dead in the water. Number 2 is that you have to associate yourself with the target market, even though you might not be, and you need to kind of speak on behalf of them. So if you're the type of person who's looking for this, and this is perfect for you, because that would help you in case it's not right for you personally, but it would be right for you if you were in their shoes. And then the third way is to go shop the competition and really feel and see what are they not doing that you're doing. And the more things that you can find, let's almost say 10. So go. That's the Easter egg. That's the Easter egg hunt, right? Go find 10 Easter eggs that the competition is not doing that you are doing, and see if that changes your conviction. It should. And if it doesn't, then maybe you're dead, a dead human being, or maybe you go find 12 or 13 or 14. But it sounds like the more things you can find that you're doing, the competition is not doing, the more that's going to raise your conviction.
Yeah. And I believe on shopping competition, I mean, people can do it and, fill out contact us forms or do things through the websites or make fake emails. But the question comes up a lot of, people being uncomfortable to do that, or what do I say? Like, who do I pretend that I am? And so I just want to share, my approach is you just tell the truth. Hey, I'm Mary. I work here. This is what I do. It's really important to me that with everybody that I have, that I match them with the right provider. And so I really want to learn about what you do, and I want to meet you, and I want to hear, hey, I'm curious. If I have somebody that comes in and talks to me, Jason, at my company, but I realize they're better for you, is it okay with you if I send them to you? Will you give me your business card? Will you give me your marketing material? And be straightforward with it. And here's the truth. I say that from a place of, if I am talking to somebody and they are better for the competition, I'll send them there. Like, it's not a made up thing. That is truthful. So I like being transparent. I like telling people who I am when I come in. I like saying, if I'm in a retail type location, I'll say, would you like to show me around, or would you like me to show myself around? Bind them that way. Hey, I have some questions for you. Would you like me to search out the internet and call your prospects and search everything I can? Or would you like to answer some questions for me? And I'm happy to answer questions for them as well too, if they ask that back. Most people don't. Most people are so taken off guard that they just will share and they don't ask anything back from you. But I'm happy to do that too. I mean, I don't think this needs to be sneaky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one last thing that makes me think of conviction, and I'll move on to something else. Is I remember kind of this aha moment I had one time of like, what is the definition of conviction from my perspective? And conviction is not convincing someone that they should do something. It's convincing someone that they believe that you believe they should do something. And it's like it's a little different, right? So instead of me like, hey, you should do this over here, but it's like you got to get them to believe that you believe that it's really the best thing for them to do. And that's really what conviction is. They're asking you, the salesperson, do you believe that they think this is the right thing? And I remember, Saunders, our son, was 15 years old, and he wants to be a musician, wants to be a rocker. And we were at this local kind of outdoor venue brewery place in Fort Worth, Texas, called Fort Brewery, and they were playing music. And he, of course, says, I want to go up there and see if I can play in between the sets. And we said, great, go ask him, which is great, phenomenal. As a 15-year-old kid, he has that kind of courage to go up there. And he goes up there and he comes back and I said, so what do they say? And he said, well, they said that we'll think about it. And I said, okay, great. We're thinking. That's not a no. It's not a no. It's a maybe. And so maybe is a gateway to a yes. That's great, right? So think about it's not a bad thing. And so I said, okay, so what are you going to do? And he said, well, I'm not sure. And so all of a sudden, they finished their set and they're taking a break. And I said, go up there. And he said, well, they said they got to think about it. And I said, I understand. So what are you waiting for? He said, well, I'm waiting for them to call me up. I said, that's not how it works, man. I was like, you got to go ask again. I mean, I got to think about it was like, it's really a maybe, and you kind of crack the door open, but now you got to go shove it open. You got to like go kick the door open, And so go up there and ask again. And what do all they're going to say is no. And so go ask again. So he goes up there and asks again, and they say fine. All right, kind of 15-year-old kid wore him down, I guess, and felt bad for him. And so he gets the guitar and he starts playing, and he's doing really well. And all of a sudden, one of the band guys, he comes over. He's like, hey, is that your son? And I say, yeah. And he said, I got thousands of kids are always asking me to play, and I always tell them no because it's going to be a train wreck up there and it's made me look bad. And he said, but I just felt something about your son that he should do it, and he's doing really well. And he's doing so well that I'm going to keep letting him play. And so let him play 3 songs, right? Not just one song, but 3 different songs. And it was a cool moment. It was a cool moment for both of us to kind of see that. We actually have a picture of him playing that's like hung up on his wall because it was like his big moment that he came out. But why? Why did he do that? Why did he go up on stage? And that's because he had his father's conviction. That's why. Right? He had his father's conviction. He turned to me and he was asking me, what should I do? And I gave him conviction. He believed that I believed that it was the right thing for him to do. That's what he was looking for. Not that I'm convincing him to go up there, but he's convinced that I'm convinced that he cannot fail. He can only succeed from this approach, and he needs to take that next step. And I think that's a big lesson for a lot of influencers out there, a lot of leaders, a lot of salespeople, that a lot of parents are trying to get their kids to do something. Is you've got to really work on your conviction. And if people are not following you, if they're not doing what you're asking them to do, then it's probably because they don't believe that you believe it's the right thing for them to do.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And that was a really, really fun night. And from that, it opened the door. I mean, we don't go to a place where he's not playing in between sets or now playing his own sets. It's really cool. All started that moment.
Yeah. So let's think about that. So if someone wants to improve conviction, or really any kind of skill that they have, we gave them obviously 3 things to do this, three ways to do this. But let's see what the wisdom of Mr. Beast would say about coming up with a goal and then finding a way to really be the best at achieving that goal or whatever that skill is. So let's see what Mr. Beast says.
Your first video is not going to give views, period. It's not. Your first 10 are not going to give views. I can very confidently say that. All you need to do, this applies to people who have dreams of being a YouTuber, is make 100 videos and improve something every time. Do that. And then on your 101st video, we'll start talking. My first 500 videos didn't deserve to get 1 million views. Like, there's a reason they did. They were terrible. But at the time, I thought they did. I'm in the mindset of a lot of small YouTubers where I thought those videos deserved 1 million views and I thought the algorithm hated me. When I watch them back now, and I can tell you exactly why. The videos are just horrible.
Love that.
Right? I love that. Well, it's like the Ed Sheeran videos too, where what's the video where he's sharing his first songs he wrote, and they're just atrocious.
He's so bad. Yeah. He's so bad in the beginning. He's almost embarrassed, but he's also grateful of how far he's come.
Yeah.
So to me, I love this advice from from Mr. Beast. I mean, it's something we need to hear too. We're obviously in the beginning stages of this podcast, and I think we're on episode 11 or 12 right now, and it's moving along. But it's about finding little small tweaks, right? Like finding little small things to improve, and going, okay, well, I'm going to keep doing this. It's like a start, stop, continue, move faster, right? So it's like, and I'm going to stop doing this. That's not really working. It's not really helping me move towards my goal. I'm going to start trying this out. I'm going to start doing these things, and let's see if that works. And then I'm going to continue doing these things that are working. And then I'm going to put a lot of gas on the fire, and I'm going to move faster on these other things in order to get to my goals faster. But I mean, I'm curious, what would you say though, from your perspective, because this concept on YouTube videos can be applied easily, obviously, to being a sales manager or a sales leader or an entrepreneur or a salesperson, is that people just give up too soon. They don't put forth the 100 reps. That's what he's saying, right? He's saying the secret weapon is just do 100 of blank, 100 performance improvement plans, 100 coaching sessions, 100 pitches, 100 whatever, right? Before you start trying to bail on the dream. Yeah.
Well, it takes me of all the trainers and speakers that we've trained over the years, and it's interesting now where people will come and they'll watch me do a keynote, or they'll watch me do an in-person training, and they're like, oh man, I'm so far from that. I'm so far from that. Like, this is just so natural. It's not natural. I mean, I don't know if you remember the specific email, I know it word for word, that came back after my very first in-person session. It said, she's really smart and she knows what she's talking about, but she's completely unlikable. Please don't send her back. That was the whole email. Word for word, I have it in my brain.
I'm going to take you through some processes to remove that.
No, I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I mean, I look back, just like he's saying about his videos, it wasn't great. Like, it wasn't that good. And so I remember that as I train new trainers or salespeople or speakers today, my first one wasn't that good. I didn't know what I was doing there. But my in-person, they're pretty good. They're pretty good today. I think the speaker fees have gone up 100,000%, something like that. I mean,
probably 100,000%.
100,000%. I mean, insane. But I've been doing it for 13 years now. YouTube is new. So here, but that's the thing. I think sometimes that's the tricky part. We get really good at one thing. We get really good at what we're selling. And guess what our company does? They give us a new product, or they put us in a new market or a new demographic. And we forget you've got to go back to the beginning and do it 100 times again. So it's not just I'm new at sales or I'm new as a leader and I have to do this 100 times. You're going to have to do that 100 times over and over and over again in your life. So I got really good doing conference call training. Remember, we used to do conference call training. I can still hear the Ring Central music in my head. And I got really good at that. And then you know what you did? We got Zoom, and now I had to figure it out again. There's a lot that goes into doing a Zoom training versus a conference call training. It's a lot that has to change. You have to think about differently. And so doing that, well, guess what? You got to start over, man. You can't sit there and think, well, I've already done it. And then you're doing live trainings, but a keynote is a different thing than a live training. A workshop's different than a keynote. And both of those, it takes 100, going in 100 times. Now we're doing it on YouTube. Is it the same as what we're doing in other places? No, this is different. And so I think too, it's knowing that you've got to do it once, but you've got to keep doing it if you're going to keep your level of success, because the world is changing, your business is changing, you're changing, your platforms change, and you've got to start over, and you got to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So let's go back and forth really fast. Let's do three quick rounds. So tell me something that a salesperson could do in order to master something. That's what we're really talking about, right? How do we go from that one time to that 100th time? And so what's something a salesperson can say to you or think about to, again, move towards that mastery?
After every single round, analyze what you did well and what you didn't do well. And you have to do both sides.
Thank you.
Jason, what's something that a salesperson can say, do, or think about to improve and get to a place of mastery with something new?
This is something I wish I would have learned a long time ago. I'm just sharing with right now, and that's just know it's going to be harder than you thought it was going to be. Just know it's going to be harder than you thought it's going to be, because if you believe it's going to be harder, then either A, it's not going to be as hard, which is going to be great, or B, it is that hard, and you're now desensitizing yourself and you're setting yourself up for how hard it's going to be. So
That's awesome.
tell me something a salesperson needs to do to say, think, or do in order to get to that level of mastery of Mr. Beast as it relates to sales.
Nice. So they need to ask for feedback from people that care about them and can do it better than them. So what they need to not do is ask for feedback from people that are mediocre or less than them. But they need to ask for the feedback, listen to the feedback, take the feedback if somebody is better than you at that thing.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Jason, what does someone need to say, do, or think about in order to get to Mr. Beast mastery level?
I would say they got to develop the mindset of like a Tom Brady, where it's like details matter. And so it's get to a point, and this is probably not in, the first 10. It's probably the first 10, 20. It's all about just reps and just like do it over and over and over again. But I would say probably after they get to like the 20th rep, they need to start really paying attention to the details of what they're doing, which is exactly what Mr. Beast is. Like, he's paying attention to little details of how he's doing the videos. I mean, every single second matters in his videos. And so you do need to get to a point of like focusing on the details.
Great. Thank you.
All right, this one last round. So tell me something a salesperson needs to say, do, or think in order to get to the level of mastery that Mr. Beast is talking about.
Well, last round I said ask for feedback from other people, but I think you need to watch yourself, and also you need to speed it up, right? So you might not get 100 leads in a month. You might if you're super lucky, but you might not get 100. That doesn't mean you can't do 100 reps. So you can do them while you're in the car driving and you're role playing with yourself, being both the prospect and be your toughest prospect. You can do it while you're, it's slow in the office. You can do it first while you're curling your hair in the morning. So you can speed up that mastery by practicing when you don't have the prospect in front of you.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Jason. One more thing. What can somebody say, think, or do in order to get to mastery level?
I would say removing the head trash, remove the leashes that prevents them from being consistent. So there's a lot of things that a sales rep is doing right now that if you think about your presentation, it's working. It's working. But you're just not doing it all the time. You're doing it sometimes. And so in order to go from being an amateur to a master, masters are just way more consistent at doing the right things more often than an amateur is. An amateur will do it like one or two or kind of occasionally, but the master just does it over and over again without thinking about it. So the good news is a lot of people aren't that far away from giving themselves a huge pay raise, because again, it's just analyzing the things that are working and then just asking themselves, why am I not doing this all the time with every single customer? And then just committing to removing those leashes and being more consistent.
Well, I was teaching some old school JFO this week. I don't know if you remember, used to say that you're going to get a lot of variety and excitement in your life. And you can have that during your sales day and work day, and you can be different with every single prospect and have a lot of fun and just completely change it up and have all this variety. But know that you're not going to have any money to do variety on your days off. And so you're going to have nothing, or your work day can be consistent. You're doing the same thing over and over and over with a tried and true process that works. And then your weekends and your vacations, you're going to have high variety because you're going to be really rich. You can do whatever you want.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I say I believe that so much, is that you just have to decide, where do you want to be bored, right? Do you want to have lots of change and be unpredictable in your sales process and then not make any money because you're not creating predictable success? And then you try to have variety, so then you're going to be bored on the weekends, right? Or do you want to have just the same consistent, predictable process that leads to predictable results? Again, like kind of the Tom Brady of sales or LeBron James of sales, but be very bored, but then have lots of variety because you have all this money that you can go do whatever you want on the weekends. But you really can't have it both ways. So you're either bored because, on your days off because you have no money, but you're having lots of fun, changing things up in your sales presentation and experimenting, or quite the opposite. And so people really need to kind of choose which one they want. So speaking of not being bored, I'm super big into the workout world, and I think your health is your wealth. And so when I'm learning how to improve my health, I'm watching like workout videos and different things. And one of my favorite new trainers right now is out there, and he just does such a a great job. His name's Anatoly, and so let's watch this video, and I'll show you what Anatoly does.
Today, once again, Anatoly is pranking these two guys with a deadlift.
What are you doing there?
I just want to put a little bit more.
We don't need any more.
It's not for you. I want for me, for myself. My doctor told me like I need a warm up every morning.
Oh, warm up. Okay.
Oh, that's what I told guys. Like, I can lift this or I need to remove.
We're done.
Please.
Yeah, it's over.
Messing with him. They can't even pick it up. They can't even do what the old guy does.
Anatoly. His videos are my favorite. I hadn't seen that one before. He is wonderful.
He's wonderful. Now, he is a very famous now bodybuilder. So if you were to, again, you were to take a shirt off, you were to go find Anatoly. I mean, one, he trains a ton of celebrities, but he is just jacked. Like he is just ripped on the inside. But this is the way he kind of like screws and messes with the bodybuilders, the different gyms, is he puts this old guy costume on and he goes and kind of acts crippled and so forth and just tries to, of course, pick up these weights. But what's amazing about it is this approach of disrupting the pattern that he's using is a huge NLP technique of disrupting the pattern. And it's working out beautifully for him because his weightlifting business his bodybuilding business, his training business is skyrocketing, right? People are so like drawn to him because he's doing something that no one else is doing. And so people, of course, are watching his videos. But again, this is a classic neurolinguistic programming technique of disrupting the pattern. It's about how can you do something that the customer is completely not expecting, so that it almost shocks their brain, right? It shocks their brain, and all of a sudden, now they're giving you the full attention because again, you're disrupting the pattern.
Yeah. Well, and he's doing it in two ways because he's doing it in the gym. People don't know what a prankster you are too. You love a good prank.
A lot.
You love to mess with people.
I do.
I hate being messed with.
My best way to mess with you is when I act really dumb.
I'm getting better at not believing it, but
yeah, because you believe that I really am dumb.
It takes me a minute. but yes, you love messing with people. So he's messing with the guys in the gym, which is great. But he's also disrupting the videos of bodybuilders through this marketing, because what are all of them? They're all trying to do these like thirst trap videos, like here's me oiled up, shirt off,
right,
like flexing, giving blue steel, all those sorts of things. He covers himself up.
Yeah.
Like you can't see his muscles, and like I've never seen him with his shirt off. Actually,
You're not going to.
I have no idea what he looks like.
You're not allowed.
I've seen him as a janitor. I've seen him as an old guy.
He's very jacked. He's almost as jacked as me.
Almost. Okay. I've never seen him, but I think that's what's really interesting. I have no idea what that guy looks like. It's the opposite of what every other, I'm assuming, and I'm not following a bunch of bodybuilders, but I'm assuming other bodybuilders, they're showing off their muscles as a way, because that is what they're marketing. And he found a completely different way. So I love that in all different ways. Our behaviors, our language. I mean, it's the first thing we say, if you're in retail, don't say, how can I help you? Because everyone says, I'm just looking, right? And we have a pattern. We've adapted that pattern, so your job is to ask me, how can you help me? And my job is to tell you, I'm just looking. And so we have to ask people first by, in our language patterns, we have to say things that they don't have a programmed response to, so that it makes them come into the present moment, stop, and then give us a more authentic, real answer.
Okay, so tell me something a salesperson can say to you or think in order to disrupt the pattern and stand out.
So they can bind somebody on why they are there. So
give an example of a bind.
I'm getting there, Jason
Sorry.
Forrest. Calm down. Okay, calm down.
It does not affect a man like it affects the woman.
Okay, that was the test. We
Totally
were
fine.
seeing. So, for instance, if I'm dress shopping, what I've taught salespeople to do that I think it's fun, is to say like, first, you can say something, an easy bind, like, are you looking for workwear or evening wear today? Okay, just give a bind that way. I like it. The more fun you can make it, again, it depends on your industry, but I like it. Are you looking to be, undercover today? Or are you looking for like your Wonder Woman outfit? What are you looking for today? And so any binds that you can get that are specific make somebody stop.
It's great.
Am I supposed to ask you the question now?
Sure, go for it.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jason, what can someone say, do, or think in order to disrupt the pattern?
Well, something comes to mind to me on the handling objection side, which is a really fun, again, NLP technique to do. And that's, let's say someone's like super mad and they have or super frustrated with customer service. They have an objection, whatever it is. And they're like, man, this product is so chintzy, or, I'm so mad at you guys, or I'm so disappointed, or I'm so frustrated. Whatever like word they use, way to disrupt the pattern is, well, if I was in your situation, I wouldn't just be frustrated. I'd be irate. I might even be a little pissed off at the company. And it's a really cool technique, because what you're doing from an NLP perspective is that you're basically taking the bigger emotion away. So if they're frustrated and all of a sudden you're like, well, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be frustrated. I'd be like pissed off, or I'd be angry. Well, again, they can't be pissed off and angry. And if you really pull it off well, which is incredible, is the customer's like, well, I don't think it's that big of a deal. And immediately it'll like simmer them down. Like it'll bring their energy level down, which is a pretty cool thing. But they're not expecting that. They're expecting a salesperson to be very defensive and very argumentative and kind of like tell the customer why they're wrong, not to actually say the customer should be even more mad than what they really are, or more upset, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, great.
So let's do one more. So tell us something a salesperson can say to you or think to disrupt the pattern and really stand out from all the other salespeople.
Yeah. So similarly, but different. So an objection or a comment that is not an emotion, but is something you agree with. So if you agree with them, instead of acting like a child that's arguing with them. So I mean earlier, so if somebody tells me, this is a lot of money, Mary, you're asking me to spend a lot of money, I just say yes, as opposed to be like, well, but have you looked at the value and and this is what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna throw this in there, or you know what, let me go talk to Jason, maybe we can rework the numbers, we can get it lower for you. We don't do that. Yes, so just agree with them if you agree with them on it. Again, and it's not a slam on your product or service. It's about something else. If they're saying, oh, well, this is, that's not a lot of time that you're spending, or blank isn't, the yard isn't very big, or any of those things or comments. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Just agree, because if you agree.
Yeah, that's hard to do though. But I love the concept of someone's like, man, this is really expensive. Yeah, it is really expensive.
Yeah, you got to really figure out whether this is what you want or not, because it's an investment.
Yeah,
we
charge an expensive price for people who see the value in it, but maybe this is not right for you.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do the work, if this is not where you want to go, you're going to be real mad at me spending that amount of money. So let's make sure this is really the right thing for you before you decide that you're going to hand me a check that big. Yeah,
100%. So it's interesting because I think a lot of people can learn a lot from the crooks of the world, and but what's hard for people is they've got a charge to themselves, and they can't look at the strategy of what the person's doing that's so successful because they don't like the person. So for example, it makes me think of like Bernie Madoff, and if you study Bernie Madoff, like right now on X, I have this very viral X post that I just did where I talked about the manipulation strategies of Bernie Madoff, and how can we kind of learn what he did from how he basically conned people, but how can you change that instead of conning people, do it in a persuasive way, not a manipulation way, but in a persuasive way, but still uses exact same strategies, but do it for good and not for evil. And what you just said is exactly one of the techniques I talk about in the X post at the Jason Forrest on X. You can go read the whole post, where I talk about one of the things that Bernie Madoff does is that exact approach. Is he basically, people are like, I just don't know. You guys, your fees are really expensive and I'm just not sure. And he immediately goes, yeah, I'm actually probably the most expensive person in New York. And there's a lot of other financial advisors you can go spend money with. And I'm only the reason why I charge the most is because I need to know that you're really serious and you're going to be loyal to me and you're going to you're going to let me do what I need to do in order to make you the millionaire that you desire, or the billionaire you desire. But yeah, if you don't see the value in it, then no big deal. But I'm only going to give you one chance to do this. I'm not going to follow up with you. I'm not going to beg you to do this. I'm just going to basically, that's it. So if you don't want to do it, then walk away now and I'll go find the next person.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know he said all of that. And that's a lot of the stuff that you say to people.
I do.
Sometimes we are going to follow up with people, but a lot of time we don't have time for that. So you tell them, I'm not going to follow up with you if you want to you need to think about it. Call me back. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, because follow-ups for losers.
Well, okay. Yes.
Right?
I agree with you. But I'm super curious because I haven't seen this post yet.
It's really
Are people
good.
mad at you?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some people on there that, again, because they're charged by the person, and that's the
Right.
problem, right? They're charged by, well, I can't be Bernie Madoff. I don't want you to be Bernie Madoff. I want you to be Jesus. I want you to be the ethical version of Bernie Madoff. That was actually Jesus. I mean, Jesus did the same things that Bernie Madoff did. I mean, Jesus was probably the best closer of all times. I mean, he sold the most books of any human being on the planet, right? But he knew from the beginning that he had a very short window. I mean, what was his
3 years?
He has 3 years. He had 36 months. He had 36 months to sell the most books of any human being on the planet, right? That's not a very, think about if you had 3 years to like make your career and like achieve your sales goal, right? Like you had 3 years. And every day so you go from town to town, you go from person to person, and he basically followed the same 3-step framework that we teach in Warrior Selling that Bernie Madoff used to con people. But he uses the same 3-step framework, which is I need to understand what your problems are, as well as understand what your desired goals are. I need to present a solution to you to get you away from this pain and towards this life improvement that you desire. And then I need to resolve your concerns. I need to ask you, are you in or are you out? And that's what he did. And so he just, that's what he did. He found out what they're in misery, they're in pain, they're suffering. They want to obviously be free. They want to be, they want to live life to the fullest. They want to be happy. They don't want to worry about stuff anymore. And so his solution was that I am the way, I am the light, and then he's like, so are you in or are you out?
I'm not following up. Jesus doesn't follow up.
I'm not going to give you my testimonials. I'm not going to give you my social proof. I'm not going to tell you all these, here's not some ads, or here's not some articles you can read. I'm going to leave you a pamphlet, a nice pamphlet, a brochure some material that you can read to think about it. He didn't do any of that.
And I'll follow up with you next week.
We'll put you in the calendar and we'll follow up. We'll put you in the CRM system and we'll kind of slow drip marketing on you. He didn't do any of that. He just said, so are you in or are you out? Do you believe I'm the way or do you not believe I'm the way? And people were like, yeah, I believe you're the way. Great. Follow me. And then they followed him. And then some people were like, I'm not sure. All right. Well, I'm about to be dead in a few years. So that's the end of that.
And there is the gospel right there.
Yeah. You just learned the whole thing.
That's
all you needed to know.
That's really funny.
That's all you need to know. So, but again, that's controversial too. I assume right now, people who hear me say that, they're like, Jesus was not a salesperson, like Jesus was God. And I think he is God. I don't disagree with that. But he still followed a persuasion framework because, he was also, man as well, but he followed this persuasion framework of, you've got to understand the problems and the desired outcome. You've got to present a solution that is different than what they thought it was going to be. And he totally gave a different solution than people thought it was going to be. And then you have to resolve the sale. You got to hey, are you in or are you nothing to deal? Nothing to think about here. It's either a good deal or it's a bad deal. What do you want to do? But Jesus did it that way and Bernie Madoff did it that way. It's just the difference between the two is Bernie Madoff was lying the entire time and Jesus was not.
Is the Jesus part in your ex post as well?
I think we're about to post that one. I think we're about to post that one. Yeah. So right now we're talking about Bernie Madoff. I think we're talking about Jesus next. I think that's the next one.
That's the logical next step.
Next step.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's great.
Yeah. But I do think, again, from a more of a meta perspective, right, is just think about how much more successful a human being would be in any area of their life if they could study the good of what someone is doing and remove the charge from the character of the person. It's so whomever that is, whatever that is, it's think of someone right now. It might be a good friend of yours. It might be a brother. It might be a sister. It might be a mother. It might be a previous coworker. And that person is 100 times more successful than you. Everyone right now can think about someone that was I can think about someone right now that was a fraternity brother of mine. And he's definitely way more successful to me, than I am today. And the question is, sure, are there things about the person that I don't really like? Sure. Are they maybe a little bit slimy, some kind of cheesy kind of things? Sure. Right. But how do I drop my ego and get away from allowing myself to not pay attention to what was the process, pattern, and strategy? What does that person say, do, and think that I can still emulate and still learn and still do and achieve his level of success, but not be the person that he is?
Right, so take the behaviors and then re-put them behind the lens of your values.
Yeah.
to do it in a more positive or more way, or a way that's more in alignment with who you are.
Yeah, separate the character from the behaviors.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like another example of that again is very controversial. But like here's a concept. So a lot of people know this story, some people don't, but many years ago, you know, before the interwebs and the YouTubes and so forth, you know, and people be able to fact check, all the fact checkers out there, you know, there was a very, very famous dictator, and he would do these rally speeches. He would do these kind of big speeches, and he would say, look, you know, give me your guns. Right? If you can take, here's all the evidence of all these different countries, and as soon as you turn your guns into the government, then immediately, you know, there's no more violence, and we can remove all violence. We can take all the violence away from the people. No more violence, no more killing people. All that's going to basically go away. And so he would just give, you know, lots of certainty in all of his messaging, lots of charisma. He would make up complete stories of other countries that have done this, and he would show them complete made up stuff of how their gun violence went down, and how people don't have those problems anymore. And so he convinced people to turn in their guns to the government. His name was Adolf Hitler. He was the head of the Nazis, and then he took them all out. Pretty nuts, right? So I share that though, because to me, like, how can we learn how to be a better communicator from what Hitler did? And people are like, what did he just say? Well, I mean, he said he has some pretty awesome strategies he did. He just lied the entire time. So he was very convicted. We talked about conviction earlier today. He was very convicted. He was very certain in what he was trying to convince people to do. And he came up and he gave them evidence on how to do it. Now, the evidence was fake. But you could do those same two things and become a phenomenal salesperson, a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal influencer by going, okay, what am I trying to get my people to do? What do I want this customer to do? How do I create a tremendous amount of certainty and conviction in my messaging around it? And how do I back it up with supporting evidence to make my conviction true? You know, but a lot of people would never study Hitler on how he was able to convince, you know, millions of people to follow him. I mean, it's crazy, right? And they were just like, he's an evil person. He is an evil person, but he had phenomenal persuasion skills.
Right. Or yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying. Or you say everybody around him must have also been evil or must have been dumb, and instead of looking and saying somehow he tricked people. I mean, there couldn't be that. I mean, I don't know. There can't be that many evil people, but there's a process that he went to changing people and making something okay that is completely. I mean, no world is it okay. So yeah, and that's definitely a difficult thing to do. But yes, if we could use that skill set and that conviction for good, in a way to change our world for the better, in order to have more peace and more love and all the things that he said he was doing but wasn't doing, then that would be incredibly powerful and really beneficial as a world. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, and that's with all things in life. That's not just, again, I mean, I'm a believer, you're a believer, we're both Christians, but it doesn't mean that we can't, you know, that we can't learn from other religious leaders. I mean, there's amazing things that, you know, that Buddha did when it came to suffering, and so did Jesus. But there's amazing things that, you know, that other religious leaders and other religions, you know, really kind of talk about that, you know, are valuable. So it's like, so that would be like, how ridiculous would that be for me to say, well, I'm a Christian, so, you know, I immediately can't even like look at or think about the behaviors of what, you know, Buddha did. He did some really good things. He was a really good guy. He was really nice. He was like, people really liked him, you know, so like he was gentle. He was kind, you know, he had a big following. So he did something right. So like, what can I learn from that guy? What can I learn from Buddha?
Yeah. And that feels more in alignment with my spirit than Hitler. I think
why I want to change it for you.
Right. Because there's a difference in sensitivities and you know, we do need to, I believe we do need to know things on history, but we also need to understand, you know, protect our daily emotions and thoughts. And that would be very difficult for me. I'd like to learn the teachings right from you in a concept and theory, but to go do that study myself and to deep dive into Hitler would be emotionally and psychologically difficult for me. I'm more sensitive than you are.
Yeah. Well, but I think that's the point. That's the point I'm trying to say is I want everyone to to again, just like a pro tip would be is just right now ask yourself, like, what stops me from learning the behavior outside of the character? And just because I'm going to learn the success strategy and the success behavior of that person doesn't mean I'm going to become that person. And that's the change. People have to disassociate from the person they're studying so that they can learn the lesson.
Well, but I think that's step one, though. I mean, I don't think in learning Hitler, I would become Hitler in any way. I think, though, in just being around those ideas and if I decided I'm going in a deep dive of studying, right? It's like, you know, going to the Holocaust Museum in, I remember when it opened in DC. I lived in Maryland at the time. I was very, very close by. And just knowing also just like what you did emotionally before and after to prepare just to go through and, you know, go through the life with somebody is a lot. So I think step one, I think for a lot of people it is that they think that they're going to, or they don't want other people to learn because the other people might become Hitler. But you're right, is the people that are I'm kind of changing my mind on this a little bit, if I'm allowed to do that. But the people that would be unaffected by it are not necessarily the people that I want learning it because they're unaffected and can do crazy things. The people that are affected that really have a heart to do good, we want to know all of these techniques on how to amplify their messaging and persuasion for good.
Okay, so let's help people out. So, what are some things that a salesperson can say, do, or think about in order to, again, up-level their skills by, again, like learn? How can they remove the charge and learn from these people that are very successful, and again, focus on the behaviors and not the character, not the person?
I think it's a refocus on what your goal of learning is. So if you know, hey, my mission is to spread love in this way, my message, which I do believe that we all have a job, we have a sales job, but our higher job is are we an amplifier for love and good in the world? And so if you find what's your flavor, what's your way of love and good in the world, and by learning this, I'm going to be able to do that the focus has to be on the goodness, not on the bad of the person.
I love that. Thank you.
All right, Jason, what can somebody say, do, or think about to prepare themselves to separate from the person so they can learn a technique?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind myself is to figure out, again, what the charge is. So it's, I've just, like, for example, like do a little like premise story, so, I can't stand, it's like, I can't stand con artists. Okay. Well, like, where's that coming from? Like, did you have an experience in your life? Did you feel like was your dad a con artist? Was your mom a con artist? Did you have a con man uncle? Like, I had a con man uncle that spent his entire life in jail, so he was always conning people. So did you have a con man uncle? Is that where the charge is coming from? And I just saw the destruction of that person's, kind of conning and how it disrupted the entire family. And so, I just can't even associate with that. Right. So there's such a charge that's coming to that. And so, you and I both went to the Hoffman process. And so what we were taught, by, I think it's Bob Hoffman, we were taught that you need to bash it all out. Right. So you have to actually visualize, so you have to actually visualize, like in my case, I would visualize, if that really is an issue for me, I would visualize my uncle, and I would visualize, him. I remember, and I can remember right now, I can literally close my eyes right now. I can remember my uncle coming to our door, all the time, like once a month, once every other week, and just asking for money. And then he always had some sad story. He always some horrible sob story, and of course then he started had kids, and of course that's a problem. And so that really pulled on my mom's heartstrings, and so she would finally give in, and give him money, and then of course he would use it for drinking and drugs and alcohol and all kinds of stuff, but I saw how much destruction that caused within our family unit, because as soon as he, it was always a problem when he was there, and then when he would leave, it became like the topic of conversation for the next hour and a half in our house about this deadbeat uncle of mine and these horrible choices he's making, right? So if I had an association to, I can't be this can't be this person over here, because it reminds me of my deadbeat uncle. Well, it would be to backtrack and be able to trace that, and they would actually be able to visualize, and I would actually take through a process of probably bashing that. So bashing would be you like get like a plastic bat or something, and you literally like visualize the experience and the emotions and the charge that the uncle brought to my family, and then basically like just kind of bashing it out until that image is completely dissolved. That was a long answer to that question.
Yeah. This is a lot. This is getting heavy. Yeah. I wonder too, is even starting a process like this with somebody that is less charged, start something that's easier, So, I mean, where is somebody that like maybe, right. Perhaps you have less charge on a Bernie Madoff than a Hitler, right? As I think probably most people would. And so you would start with somebody that there's a less charge to start working through that as well, instead of, is it okay? I mean, do you think that's a reasonable choice? I mean, that would be, honestly, like that's where I would go first, is what do I have less charge in, and start in that space.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying that, yeah, if a person's kind of new to this practice, then sure, they can kind of build a muscle up for that. But I mean, this is a practice that I currently do. I mean, I currently do this a lot in the sense of figuring out the things that, that I'm most kind of, like, again, I have that emotional charge, that disruption inside of me that makes me feel insecure, makes me feel embarrassed, makes me feel ashamed, whatever it is. And I'm doing the process of again, either physically bashing it with something, or, I mean, that's why I love going to the boxing gym, because, I get to take these experiences, these emotions that I don't like, and I get to, I get to visualize that's the bag, and I get to punch the crap out of it, right? So, but I also think once you get used to the muscle of it, then yeah, you can jack it up and you can go to something more intense.
Do you think at all that this is a masculine feminine thing? Because to be honest with you right now, I don't want to do any of this. I think I'm fascinated by it and I understand it in theory, and I would love to learn from you. I have zero desire right now to do this at all. Like, I don't want to. I will resist it. I feel everything in my body like, oh my God, what if he asked me to do this? I really don't want to do it. It really pulls me out of I don't know. Is that a different human being thing? Is that a different?
Well, you did do it though. So was it helpful for you? I'm not saying that there's a better. I don't disagree with you. There's probably a better way from a feminine perspective to do it. But I mean, you did go the Hoffman process, and you did do bashing, and you did have kind of past, trauma in your own mind, and you did get rid of it that way.
Yeah, but that's clearing from my own history, not going in and doing a deep dive into the speeches of Hitler. Like, I don't want to do it. I mean. And so is that, I don't know. Is that okay?
Yeah. So I think we would just have to figure out, well, what's another way? I mean, there's obviously a lot of NLP techniques that we can probably use to do this. I mean, there's another technique on, I mean, they're all kind of very similar though. They're just different approaches, right? So one is the visualization of, like, tell me something good about Hitler, tell me something not good about Hitler. I mean, that's obviously that approach, right? Because you're just kind of verbalizing it and kind of this verbalization bashing type thing, and until it becomes neutralized. I mean, there's also like feel the pain, remember an emotional bashing when you're kind of feeling it, but then there's also like the great work of Byron Katie, where it's just, you question it, so, yeah. Right. So it's like, what's the feeling? And then, is this feeling true? Is it absolutely true? Is there a chance that it's not true? I mean, like that whole thing, right? Yeah,
and I get all of that. And if somebody doesn't know this, it can sound like you're being frivolous with it, and you're not. So I just want to make that clear. This is not making things not important. They're deeper processes that we're not talking through the whole thing with it right now. But I think there, to me, it's an avenue of learning. It's one that's ignored, which is a great reason for you to bring it up, because it's very, I mean, you can go listen to anybody that's like, find someone great and do exactly what they're doing and follow the processes of this great person and this great person and do their things. And this is an avenue that is very powerful and not as talked about or studied, or because it's uncomfortable, right? I'm uncomfortable. It's not as, PC, but it's there. But it is one pathway of learning. So you don't have to do all pathways at all times.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, to wrap this up, what would you suggest? I mean, from a feminine perspective, what would you suggest if a person's wanting to, again, what we're trying to say? It's like, how do we remove the charge from what I don't like about someone, but I can focus on the behaviors of what they're doing that I need to do more of? Because that's really what we're asking.
Yeah, is it to go into our, your thinking mind and to be really strategic with it. So the same thing on coaching is if somebody's doing something wrong, I don't want to ask a lot of color around it. How did you feel when you were doing that wrong? What did the person's face say when you said that dumb thing? We don't want to ask seeing, hearing, feeling questions around it. It's just thinking, what happened next? It's very analytical. And so I would go to an analytical part of the brain and then look at the strategy, taking out seeing, hearing, feeling as much as I can. So I'm just looking at a process, not looking at the other parts of it. But I also think there's something in just looking at what you're ready for in the moment. And there are days where I can be more analytical and I'm very curious about those things. And that would be a really fun thing. And there's times where I'm like, I just don't want to do it. And I think if it's about it's doing some self-inquiry on that, on why do you not want to? And sometimes it's just a moment in time, and that's okay too. I'm going to do this other approach today. All right. I mean, they're all pathways to success.
Yeah. So you're saying which I agree with. There's hundreds of ways to get to the same outcome, but it's about obviously choosing one and being all in and being committed, and then of course, if that doesn't work for you. I mean, well, always every pathway works to some extent, right? So there's something worked about it, and so it's just figuring out what else is kind of holding you back, and then trying something else. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, we have discussed a ton today. We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot just from talking about these different concepts, which I think is great. And so today we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the concept of conviction. We talked about how to disrupt patterns. We talked about how to learn from people, even though you might not like the person, you might not like their character, but how can you still learn from other great ones that are out there? And so we talked about a lot of stuff today, which was great. And so if you like this conversation, if you like learning, then from what we like to learn from, then of course, like and subscribe, share this video. And until next time, this is Jason Forrest. Push yourself to become a better version of you.